Alright, hello everyone. It's Mr. Barden here. I'm coming at you from a different location on a different computer. I just had a lot of work to get done at LSU, and I'm recording this video while I'm here. So, what is this? This video is going to be one of two lessons about making classes of objects. So, I've already done a video about objects just in general with JSON formatting. There it is, woohoo. Check it out if you haven't. I'll try to remember to put a card at the top of the screen for you. But this is going to be more about classes of objects, and that's a little bit different. And I'll explain exactly what those are and how they're all different. But I just want to say before we get started, if you learn something while watching this, definitely consider giving the video a like or subscribing to the channel if you're following along. It does help out with a bunch of stuff. But anyways, we'll get on to more of the YouTube-y stuff as we go. So I just want to point out that I also will put in the description a link to this page right here. This has everything I've talked about so far with objects, as well as what I'm going to talk about today with classes, and what I'll be talking about in the next video with adding arguments to our classes. So that's the all right there, all handy for you to access. It will all be in the description of this video. So let's hop into it. I've got this sketch, which I'll save so I can give it to you with the other stuff. And in it, I just happen to have a simple JSON formatted object just to make a simple kind of green, slightly transparent circle. You can see I've made it down here, just like we've done so far, nothing too crazy. So with a class of objects, a class is more like a template for to make a bunch of similar objects. And once we start adding in methods that we can execute with our objects, then it starts to become very powerful and very I don't want to say intuitive, but more how you might think. Okay, I have a thing on the screen that's doing something; it's performing some task. So let's just go down. I like to go to the very bottom of my sketch to do this, just like making a new function. So why am I beeping? Anyways, so just like I'm making a new function, but this time we say class. And yes, it has, it's angry at me because I haven't given it a name. You have to give it a name, and all the rules for functions and variables and all the stuff still apply. So this is going to be function, or not function, class potato. Why not? And then it gets the braces afterwards. There is no parentheses here. We don't want that. Not yet there, at least. One thing to point out is that it's pretty much the common standard convention that all of your classes start with a capital letter in order to differentiate them as classes. So I'm going to do my best to keep that up consistently throughout all of my videos. That's one thing to note. So when you're looking at a lot of stuff, particularly when this course gets into the audio unit, that library really uses all of the capital letters for the class name. So I'm just going to do my best to keep them consistent throughout the video, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in order to work. It's just a kind of a convention thing that's popped up. So inside of these braces is where we will define what is class potato. So what we need are a few things. The first one that I like to do is the constructor. Just like that. So what we're doing here are essentially giving our class its various methods and property. And I've used that word methods a few times. So just to illustrate what that is, we've got, this dot methods. There we are. So I've got this here from the textbook, and this, I'm going to kind of summarize all of this, but basically a method is a small little function that an object has baked into its code that it can execute whenever you tell it to. Now, there are different ways that we can format this in our code, but basically I tend to do the first one. It's just a shorthand of the second one, saying that it's a function and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's head back into our code. Constructor is where we build all of the stuff. So this is where we're going to tell our class this is all of the resources that we have. Later on, when we start getting into working with arguments, that's going to be more useful to us. But for now, let's just go ahead and start using it so that way when we dive into it in the next video, it's not completely new. So this is where we're going to start utilizing the word this. You'll notice again, it types up yellow. So the reason we're using this is because we are making a template to make, however many of these objects that we want. And that's great, but there's no actual object. So how do we tell the computer to attach, set these parameters for an object that doesn't exist? That's why we have the special little keyword here, this. And that just says, hey, whatever object is going to be here, we're going to stick it on, well, this object. So we'll say this dot, and this will this will be handy. So so this dot x we can assign is going to be assigned to, let's just say, a random value between 0 and the width. Actually, let's make it between 50 and width minus 50. We'll keep it on the canvas. Then we'll say this dot y gets assigned another random between 50 and height minus 50, just to keep that consistent. This dot, I like to use C for color. We'll just make that brown. What else am I missing? I want a width. There. This dot width will be assigned to 25, and this dot height will be assigned to 45. I'm just kind of arbitrarily picking numbers with a vague idea in mind, but this is where we're putting together all of the properties of our object. Again, this is just like setting things up here with our JSON formatted objects. But now, since we don't have the object, it's all this dot, and we're assigning the things to some value here in the constructor. We're building up what all of the properties are. We're constructing it. The next method we're more than likely going to need for most of our objects is some way to put it on the screen. We're going to build stuff with all of these resources, and it's basically going to be doing this part up here from the previous video, the part where we make the object. I tend to call mine up here, but it can effectively be whatever you want. But this is where we implement it. So let's say we're going to fill with this dot C for color, and then I wanted to make another ellipse with this dot x, this dot y, this dot width, dot height. We have that there. One thing that I find very helpful is to add these two functions right here, push and pop. And the short version of what push and pop do in P5 is that it creates a kind of a isolated bit of scale. So whatever we set for the fill and the ellipse and all that for this particular object isn't going to be affected by anything else that happens in the code and vice versa. So we could really customize this particular shape. If we run this, it's going to be the same thing, nothing else. For right now, we're going to leave this class, and we're going to actually make an object using what we have. Again, we have the constructor, which takes all the bits and pieces that we give it and assigns them to parts of the class. And then we have some method that makes something appear. So in order to actually see something on the screen, now that's all we have. That's all we need. So what I'm going to do, and I'm actually just going to comment out um, this circle, and we're going to go in and make a thing. So let's make this object, this potato. We can name it anything. I was just trying to think. I don't know exactly what I want to name it. So Bob is kind of one of my placeholders. I use a lot for that. So when we're doing this, we need to declare Bob globally, generally speaking. That isn't always the case, but I find it's kind of helpful to declare Bob there. And then in setup, or wherever you need to, actually inside of a function is where we can create this object. And the reason for that is just because we need to, look inside and index all the things and have the code actually be running before we look into it. It's like trying to use, the random function or width and height and things like that outside of a function. P5 gets really angry at you. So if you just kind of follow what I'm doing, you should have minimal issues. So now that we've declared Bob, we can say Bob is going to become a new instance of the potato class. And right now, we have made the object. Bob is a new version of the potato template. So Bob is a unique instance. I'm running out of ways to say this. We have let's say we've got the template to make a thing. Let's use a cell phone, for example. A template to make a cell phone. The template to make all of these phones is exactly the same, but yours is unique. Yours has a unique combination of colors and apps and phone numbers and things in other things installed, backgrounds, all that. That unique instance, your phone, which is equivalent to Bob, is a unique instance of whatever model of phone you might happen to have. That's about as many ways as I can think of to say that off the top of my head. So once we've done that, you'll notice that the code is running, but we aren't actually seeing Bob. This is again where that idea of the modular code comes into play. We have this class of stuff, this template, and every member of the potato class can execute every argument we tell it to here, or every method that we tell it to have, but it won't until we tell it to. So I'm just going to go into my draw function, and we'll just say bob.appear. And boom, there's a potato. So we do need the parentheses here whenever we are executing a method. Because if you remember, if I scroll down, a method is just a function. It's a function that's attached to this object for it to be able to execute. So we need the parentheses here in order to actually see it. And maybe I wanted to play around with this a bit more. Maybe we could say and that didn't work out quite how I wanted it to, but there we are. That's me getting distracted. So at this point, we have now made an object and made it appear on the screen utilizing a class. I want to do one more thing, and that is make another two methods and an object and just illustrate how they can do all these methods, but they don't have to. So I'm going to call this grow, and we'll say this dot scale plus plus. I think that'll work. No, wait. I don't want to set this up. I didn't plan this before I started making the video. I want to increase the size, so maybe we'll just do it like this. This dot width plus plus this dot height plus plus. I didn't have a property already called scale, and that's what was causing the issue, or it would have caused an issue. But I was thinking, I could just use the scale function and make it bigger. There'd be more steps. But so now we have method grow, which is just going to increase the size of the potatoes. And then we'll make another one. What do we want to do? What do we want to do? We'll call this spoil. We'll just say this dot color. It's assigned to be lime green. There we are. Okay. So I've got these two new methods attached to this class. Again, all of these methods are inside of the braces for the larger class. And depending on how many methods you have, classes can take up a fair bit of space in your code. But normally that's not too much of an issue. So I'm going to make another one. See, Bob and Sally. Sally is also going to be a new instance of the potato class. We have that there, and I'll just say Sally dot appear, P-E-A-R. There we are, and we have two of them now. So let's start by utilizing some things. I'm gonna just add a quick conditional statement here. If mouse is press, we'll say if mouse x is greater than width divided by 2, then we will say bob dot grow, else Sally dot spoil. And just to make this extra clear, I'm going to add a line. We'll say that's width divided by 2, 0, width divided by 2, and height, just so we can see this line down the middle of the screen. So to break down what I have just typed is I have made another object, another potato. We can see them right here. And I've added to the class two new methods. So at this point, if I click the mouse and my mouse is on this side of the screen, then the potato called Bob will execute the grow method, and it should get bigger. And then if I'm not, meaning if I'm on this side of the screen, Sally will turn to this gross kind of green color. So let's see if I got that right. So yes, I'm clicking on this. They are increasing. It's becoming gradually more round because of everything. But if I move over here and click, boom, Sally turns this very unappetizing for a potato color. So we've got two methods, and this one, if I click again, it's not going to do anything. But we're doing these two methods, and each object is able to do them. However, I could very easily just change this to Sally and Bob. And that one changes color, this one grows, the positioning is random, but what I'm wanting to get at is that both objects can execute either of these methods. It depends just on what you want them to be doing. And this idea is going to come in handy when we start talking about sprites in the P5 play lessons, which will be coming up shortly. We'll be diving into that gradually, but I do have a few videos on the YouTube here that kind of dive into that. But all of the main sprites that we use are objects in a larger sprite class with a ton of methods attached to them. So that is the first step of this section. And again, just to briefly reiterate, we can create a class which can be used to make multiple objects with similar properties. And then we can attach methods into that class and have all of our objects execute those methods based off of different conditions. Sometimes, they could just always be doing it, or it could be based off of conditionals or other statuses in the sketch, things like that. It can respond to whatever. This will become, again, a lot more useful, but it's not going away. I want to stress that as we keep going and start making these more complex things. So that's going to be it for me on here. I'm going to save this, put all the stuff on the video description so you'll be able to find all the things. And I'm going to end it here. So I will see you all the next time that I see you. Bye.